This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right. With that, I will call to order this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. We are all present in person, but we are recording and are also remote. First item on the agenda is public speak. Is there anyone here to speak to anything that is not on the agenda tonight?
Like to speak online, use the raise hand function. I'll give you the ability to do so.
All right. Couple administrative items. First, we have election of officers.
I nominate Jesse Belcher Tim to be the chair of the planning board. Second.
I'm willing to, again. I'm also happy to entertain any other options. No. All right. Voting for me as chair.
Aye.
Favor. I would like to nominate James as vice chair again.
I'm willing to do it.
Second that. All right. Any other nominees? For James as vice chair, all those in favor? Aye.
I have to abstain.
All right. And you should also have all received the calendar for meetings for 2026. Yep. There's a couple things that sort of change up our normal schedule, so just get it all where you find your current date.
Nobody seconded your nomination.
Yeah. And
did?
Oh, yeah, don't worry. Thank you, though. Good catch. All right, moving along, our continued public hearing for Joe Kelly seeking a special permit under sections 8.3 and 12.7 for construction of 14 new dwelling units in 3 duplex and 8 single unit structures. Is there someone here from the applicant to give us an update?
Good evening.
If you can go podium and name and address, please.
My name is Attorney Michael Labrie, 710 Grattan Street, Chicopee, Mass. I represent a newly formed LLC known as Sycamore Lane at Whispering Pines LLC. That'll be the name of the LLC, and that's Joe Kelly and his associates. Tonight we're applying for a special permit under sections 8.3 and 12.7 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Easthampton for the construction of 14 new dwellings, new units in 3 duplex and 8 single unit structures to be constructed on a 12.1 acre parcel. We've entered into purchase and sales agreements with the owners of 283 Loudville Road, 279R Loudville Road, and a portion on Torrey Street in the back. 3 parcels consisting of 12.071 acres. In a moment, I'd like to introduce Mr. John Furman from BHB Associates for a presentation to you all that I believe will show, first of all, a minimal impact on the surrounding community. Secondly, the proposal will show that it's consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinances of the city of Easthampton. And lastly, there will be a harmonious relationship between the proposed development and its surrounding community. I'd like to add that the developers, the applicants tonight, have 2 previous developments of like type in the surrounding area that have been very successful and well received and meshed in nicely to the neighborhood. Also, I'd like to add that there's been at least 2 meetings of the neighborhoods. The neighbors were given on the first meeting hand notices by hand knocking on doors, and the second meeting was given by the U.S. mail with about 7 days advance notice. Those meetings have gone very well and very well received by the neighbors. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. John Furman for this presentation.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
If I could just bear your indulgence for a minute, I need to hook into your
Yeah, sure.
Wi-Fi so I can share. All right. Is, the link for this Facebook meeting, so I don't see it on the calendar for today.
It is on the, if you go to the easthamptonma.gov/planning board, it's right at the top there.
There it is. All right. Joined as
Right, you should have gotten the ability to become a contributor.
Yeah, on the laptop.
looks like it. How about now? All right. Seems to be okay. If I can share my screen.
There we go.
All right. All right. Well, good evening. Thank you for your patience there. My name is John Furman. I am the office manager of VHB in Springfield. And I'm also the engineer of record for this project. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be sharing.
There's just one window, which is showing us your research on Easthampton, which is awesome. You need to share a different window.
That's how I got onto the website. Yeah. Let's see. Share.
We're all in favor of that.
Stop sharing. I guess
You
window.
John?
Window, maybe.
I think you were able to help.
Yeah, do you want a hand, John? You got it?
Let's see.
Now you're presenting the whole thing, so just go to where you need to. It should be good.
Full screen.
No, I think I need you.
Yep. On my way.
Sorry. There's something else there.
And do you want to just do the entire screen so you can
Yeah.
navigate in between? Excellent. This is what you want?
Perfect.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. So for the presentation tonight, what I'd like to do is kind of talk about the activities that we've done since our 12/16/25 planning board meeting. What I have in front of you here on the screen is a response to comment letter. And the comments that I'll be going over were received from the municipal departments, as well as emails that were sent to the city by the abutters, as well as comments that were made during the meeting. And then walk through the plans. There were some minor updates to the plans, and then answer any questions that you may have. So from the 12/16 meeting, we've done a number of items. We actually, the planning board attended a site walk with me on Saturday, the January 10th. I think most of the members were in attendance. We basically walked in where the driveway would be. We walked along the easterly property line, and we went about 50 feet from the existing tree line. During that meeting, I kind of pointed out where the detention basin was and approximately where the houses were. I think the board got a good flavor for what was already cleared previously to our development, and I tried to point out what was left going to be cleared as part of the project. We also had a butters meeting that was scheduled for Tuesday, January 13th. We had scheduled that at the Easthampton Library Annex through Chuck. And he was helping us to organize that. To notify the abutters for that meeting, I had received, or I requested from Dylan, the abutters notice that the city sent out for the planning board meeting, and we duplicated that. When we sent them out, we sent all the mailings out certified mail. So that was a proof of that they actually hit the mailbox. And so at that meeting, we had we mailed out 53 invitations, and eight people showed up. And I have some of the comments that were discussed at that meeting in this response to comments here. So as far as the response to the comments goes, I'm going to start off going through the city engineer's comment letter. Can you guys see that? You need to make it bigger?
I've read it.
Yeah, we've got it in front of us.
Okay, all right. I'll just go through it. So prior to the city engineer issuing her letter, I had called her and left her a message and asked her if she had any questions reviewing the plans, because at that point, after the first meeting, we were looking for responses to comments. I also called the DPW and I called the fire chief. So the city engineer was the first to respond to me, and she had indicated that she was in the process of doing her review, but she had a couple items that she wanted me to look at in advance of this memo coming out. And her concern was that when we do our stormwater model analysis, it's based on a measurement of cubic feet per second of water discharging the site. And so the analysis records the results to the 100th 0.00 of a cubic feet per second. So it's minuscule. And so when we report it in our report, we round to the nearest tenth, because that is engineering practice. So she went into the actual model and she saw that for two of the storms, the 2-year and the 10-year, our post-construction discharge was exceeding the pre-construction discharge. One of them for the 2-year was by 0.01 cubic feet per second, and the other was by 0.03 cubic feet per second. And she self-admitted that that is a very, very minor increase, but the letter of the law is 0. So as we go through the plan tonight, I will show you what we did to basically drop that down to 0 and address her comments. Before this memo was issued, we had sent her incremental updates, and that's why that comment generally didn't appear, because we had addressed it prior to her responding to it. So her first comment was the application refers to the basin as a detention basin, and she reviewed the calculations, and it's an infiltration basin. We have corrected it on the plans, and just as a clarification, I think I mentioned it during the first meeting, is that we had done soil testing out here in 2 different locations. Our first design, this basin was a detention basin. It was outletting to the one in the back. When the one in the back failed because of poor soil conditions, we converted this over to an infiltration basin, and we just didn't change the name. So that's all been rectified. The pipe flow diagrams in our pipe modeling don't correlate to the buildings. Again, we had updated things to address that minor increase in stormwater flow, and we were just sending her what she needed to review. The report she was referring to was not updated, and some buildings were mislabeled because they were then directed into the basin. The stormwater management report that we updated is completely updated, and those numbers all match. As noted in the stormwater management report, a stormwater pollution prevention plan must be submitted prior to start of construction. We do note that under the EPA guidelines that the EPA notice of intent needs to be filed electronically 14 days prior to construction start. Before you can file that, a stormwater pollution prevention plan has to be prepared, which is basically the roadmap for the contractor on how he deals with stormwater during the construction cycle. So we have not prepared that yet, but that will be prepared once we get closer to construction. Based on the grading plan, the grades, and I mentioned this at our first meeting, the grade at the driveway is being raised slightly so that water in Loudville goes past our driveway and not into our site. And she was just concerned that there was going to be puddling at the intersection of the driveway, and asked how we were going to deal with that. I'm going to jump down to the last comment, which was in her email, that says plans show the trenches in Loudville Road. The city requests that the road be milled and repaved in the areas of these trenches. So that's our response to that question. So the plans have been updated, and where the curb return hits Loudville to both the west and the east, we have shown a line across that. We're going to put an 1.5 mill and an 1.5 overlay on the roadway. So all that trenches and all that section here will be new pavement. We also have reviewed the existing condition survey. I think I mentioned during our first meeting that when our surveyors go out, they have the pole and they take a shot. We don't have all of those on our plan because they become unreadable because there's just so many of them. But when we get into the CAD file, we open those up and that data is available to us. When we look at the gutter profile on both sides of Loudville, there is slope from the western side to the eastern side. So water will go past. So if we mill it 1.5 inches and we put that same profile back, there will be slope. It's not a lot. We can't create more slope. We have to connect point A and point B, but the water will continue down to where it is going now. During construction, the contractor should be careful not to have construction equipment or compact the areas where stormwater will be infiltrated. This is a standard item. We did soil testing to determine a permeability rate. If the contractor goes in there and he brings an excavator in there or a wheeled payloader, he basically densifies that soil and he reduces the infiltration amount. So we have a note on our plans that says the contractor is not to enter that with heavy equipment, and that maintains what our design is. The next one is basically just a note. And I'll talk about this a little bit more during the abutters comments. And she's basically kind of stating facts is that the stormwater basin by DEP regulations has to drain within 72 hours. We have calculations in the stormwater management report that shows that we achieve that. The soil profile, if you recall, is all sand in this area. By the Easthampton ordinance, we have to maintain 3 feet of groundwater or 3 feet of separation between groundwater and the bottom of the basin. We did not encounter groundwater in our test pits, which went down about 14 feet. So standard engineering practices is due to lack of any evidence of seasonal high groundwater. The 14-foot elevation is considered groundwater because there's no evidence that it was ever higher. And then we add 3 feet to that, and that's how we come up with our design. And I'll go over that a little bit more later. In the long-term maintenance measures, the water quality units basically say to clean per manufacturer's requirements. And she basically just wants a time frame. Our standard inspection is twice per year for any type of catch basin or stormwater quality unit. And then with maintenance, when the sediment that is inside of it builds up to a depth of 6 inches. The sumps in these areas are 4 feet. So we usually limit them to 6 inches. They vacuum them out, and that gets them to another year. And that'll be also part of the homeowners association document when that gets executed. Per city ordinance, a stormwater bond must be posted for the project. And her comment is that needs to be posted prior to construction start. So what we did is I sent her this email, which I obtained from the contractor, and we listed 6 of the major drainage components here. So looking at the cost of those, the cost of the drainage system install, including the excavation and stabilization of the basin, is about just shy of $115,000. So she has that when we go to get to the point where we issue the bond. If the board agrees, that's the amount that we'll use. Per the city ordinance, as-built need to be submitted to the city prior to following construction, and we plan on doing that. And the next to last comment, once ready, house numbers come from her department, which we did on Pine View. We put together a plan identifying the house numbers we would like. We worked back and forth with the then engineer, got it accepted, we recorded it, and then that's how the house numbers were issued. So we plan to do that same process here. And then lastly, the last comment was basically about the roadway milling and overlay, and I'll show you on the plan where that is. So the next sections were basically abutters comments that were submitted to the planning department via email. These first ones were all in one email. Again, they talk about the misnaming of the detention basin versus an infiltration basin. I've already commented that and how that happened. The next comment was soil infiltration testing was conducted in September at different locations from where the detention basin is shown on the plan. And that is not correct. The site plans that we have, we did 2 series of detention basins or soil testing. We did 2 tests in back, 2 tests in front. And the ones in back were not used because of the poor soil conditions. The plans that we submitted to the board actually have the locations of the test pits shown on them, and they are located inside the basin. So that is not a correct comment. The city requires a stormwater management plan. Has one been prepared? Yes, we prepared the stormwater management report. We filed the application, and everything that the city requires has been submitted and it's being reviewed by the engineer. If planning board has already not done so, this writer recommends that a consultant be hired to conduct a peer review of the application. We just noted that it was a comment. Our opinion of it is that if she was referring to the stormwater, because all her other comments refer to the stormwater, we would say that we personally don't feel that a peer review is needed for a number of reasons. The design of this is almost identical to the design at Pineview, which is functioning. The soil reports and the geotechnical testing that we've done are very favorable for the design of the stormwater system. And we have no connection to any municipal collection system at all. All the stormwater and the peak rate increases that are being experienced by this project are all being handled on site and treated on site up to the 100-year storm. So I could see if a peer review might be warranted if we were connecting to a municipal system where downstream capacity might be an issue, but everything is being handled on site. Of course, we'll leave that as a discussion to the board, but that's our opinion. The additional comments that we have here were comments that were basically posted during the first planning board meeting. And we generalized them. We didn't take them word for word. The first comments were general comments regarding the increase in traffic and traffic speed. One of the comments that we heard at the second abutters meeting was that there's an impression that this developer is connected to that development that's happening in Northampton off of Torrey Street. And we just want to be clear that we are only purchasing the property from that landowner. We have no obligation. These development team has no financial responsibility and no obligation to that other project. They're completely separate. So there was a cross link that said this developer was actually involved in that one as well. And I just want to put on record that that is not true. We have no issue on that. From the traffic study, we followed the Mass DOT standards for creating a traffic assessment. And in that, those standards use the manual called the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or the ITE manual, for generating traffic based on a certain use. We use that. We followed the Mass DOT standards. And in that report, which was submitted as part of the original documents, the peak hour increase in traffic in the morning hour is 6 vehicles, 1 every 10 minutes. And in the evening hour during the weekday coming home is also 6. So the peak hour was 7 to 9 in the morning, and then the peak hour in the afternoon is 6 to 4. As far as a traffic generator, these types of projects are very low traffic generators. And we believe the comment is basically tied to the traffic that is going to be experienced on the roadways from the larger project, which is happening in Northampton, because there's no separation in the roadways. You can basically go onto Torrey Street and come into Easthampton. With respect to the comments regarding speed and the rate of which people drive on Loudville Road, there's nothing this project can do about that. That is an item for enforcement by the police department. We have no way to address that. So, you know, we heard what the comment was, and there's just nothing we can do about that one. The next comment was generally a comment regarding the roadway condition and pedestrian safety. One of the comments at the abutters meeting was that there is the impression that this property that we're developing has been functioning as the detention basin for all the stormwater coming in off of Loudville. And that's why none of the other abutters have any stormwater problems. And that's not true. When we look at the survey, those survey shots that I had mentioned before, there already is a very slight mound between the edge of paving and the property line, which is preventing stormwater from coming into that property. There is a low point in the property, which we saw during the site walk, that has water in it, but that's just collecting water from that immediate area. There's no signs of water coming from the roadway in. As far as the roadway condition goes, we do have trenches that we are cutting into the roadway. What this response says is that if you look at the detail plans, we have a detail for how the trenches will be repaired. So we're repairing them with 3 inches of asphalt over a compacted bed of 12 inches of gravel. In addition to that, once the trench is fixed, the entire section will be milled and overlaid by another 1.5 inches. So that'll be a very continuous roadway surface. I'm sorry, 4 inches of asphalt, not 3. Yeah, I saw that I have the wrong number. General comments regarding utilities and the adequacy of the capacity of the systems. One of the comments we kept hearing at the abutters meeting was the concern about the sewer. And one of the abutters just kept saying, I'm concerned about the sewer, you're putting sewer in, I'm concerned about it. But there was no evidence provided, so we point blank asked her, do you know something about the condition of the sewer that either ourselves or the DPW don't know? Because we've talked to the DPW and there doesn't seem to be any capacity issues. And the response basically just came back that, well, we're concerned that you're using a pump station because the project on Torrey Street is also using a pump station, and it's going into a pump station down the street that is already under capacity. So our initial submittal basically calculated the sewer generation expected on this project using 310 CMR 15, 110 gallons per day per bedroom. And the actual sewage use generated going into the system is extremely low for the area. It is an 8-inch pipe in the roadway. There are no historic sewer capacity issues that we were informed of. So as far as we know, there's no issues with the sewer. The concern generally seemed to be that we have gravity within the property going to a lift station, and then we're lifting it 4 feet and then going out gravity. And the pump station itself seemed to be the issue. And we reiterated at the meeting that all the utilities in the roadway are going to be private utilities maintained by the condo association. The city has no responsibility for the pavement or any of the utilities going in there. As far as the water goes, we again, in our first submittal, provided a calculation using 310 CMR of what the water demand was. And at that meeting, we had commented that we are contemplating putting in an irrigation system. We're not really sure yet, but what this response does is provide what the increase for the water would be. So industry standard is that an adequate irrigation amount is 1.5 inches per week. We have 2 acres of lawn area which would be irrigated. So if you take that 1.5 inches, times it by the area, you get a cubic footage, 7.48 gallons of water per cubic foot, divided by 7, that equals an average irrigation demand of 11,600 gallons per day. That's in addition to the 3,000 that we have for domestic use. And as a reminder, we are connected to the 16-inch connection main, not the smaller distribution main that all the neighborhoods are connected to. So again, we fully expect that even if an irrigation system is added, there will not be any impact on demand. Comments regarding the construction impact on the properties abutting Pineview Estates. So this comment originated from an interview that the commenter had with one of the abutters. And basically that abutter directly is next to Pine View, and there was some concrete left on his property and some damage to a pin. We actually, the abutter discussed it at the abutters meeting. I guess the comment is that, you know, our Joe's name and contact information is out there. We never got notice of anything that was going on for that. So Joe makes the same commitment that during this construction, his name and his email address and phone number will be available. If something happens, really just need to pick up the phone and call, and they'll jump on it immediately. They did discuss this with that abutter. The concrete that was there has been removed, and the pin, for whatever reason, the contractor kept damaging it, and he's been instructed where the pin is and to stop doing it. So that appears to have been resolved. So just wanted to not avoid a comment that was provided. That it was one that, you know, we found out about and we tried to address. General comment regarding construction traffic and noise. As far as the construction traffic goes, we had made a commitment to the neighborhood that there'd be no loading and unloading of equipment or materials in Loudville Road. That commitment, that's on Pine View. That commitment still stands for Whispering Pines. Everything will be brought into the site and loaded and unloaded there. We do note, however, that at some point there will be construction vehicles that have to actually be in the roadway to do work in the roadway. That is independent of that commitment to keep everybody out. We can't connect utilities, or we can't mill and overlay the roadway if we're not allowed to have those pieces of equipment in there. As far as the construction noise goes, we've heard this a couple times during this meeting and at the abutters meeting. The construction noise is temporary. You know, by OSHA regulations, all the vehicles and all the equipment have to have the backup alarms. You can't turn them off. It's a OSHA violation to not have them on. We have asked the contractor to minimize the noise as much as possible. Again, it's only temporary. So, you know, when the construction project is done, Pine View, I think we only have one more house to build. Then we pave the roadway, finish all that, and then we're done. And then that noise will stop. And then this project will commence once we get approved. Concerns over the groundwater. If the board is okay, I'd like to spend a minute on this, because the way the comments were presented, it called into question the adequacy of our design. And it was basically focused on how the groundwater elevations were determined. First off, the commenter basically said that if you looked at the detention basins in Pine View, they're full of leaves and they're not functioning. So those basins are still not online. There's no water going into them. There's no curbs on the roadway, so any water that falls on the roadway surface just goes into the lawn area and the gravel and just infiltrates. The basins are all elevated over the pavement surface because the top has not put on it yet. So that basin has leaves in it, but it's actually not doing anything. It's not even dug out all the way. So once that's finished, it'll be dug out. Those leaves will be removed. Topsoil will be put in, and everything will be put back online once all the disturbed areas are stabilized. As far as how the groundwater elevations were determined for this project, what we always do, we being VHB, is that we rely on another professional engineer to determine that data for us. We have retained a geotechnical engineer. And for those of you that don't know, geotechnical engineers specialize in soil and soil strata engineering properties. So the way that they determine the soil properties is they do test pits, which I already talked about. We locate them in the basin and we go down as far as we can. In this case, we went down, I believe, 14 feet. We look for estimated seasonal high groundwater. And the way that is determined is that is an indication of where groundwater has come into its highest elevation in the past. How that is determined is when groundwater comes up and then goes down naturally, it leaves an orange oxide layer in the soil profile. And that is the groundwater carrying minerals and elements up from lower levels. And then the water goes down and leaves those there, and it's a bright orange layer. So if that layer is found during the test pitting, that is the elevation that we use for seasonal high groundwater. On these test pits, there was no oxide layer. So you fall back to the next indicator is actual presence of groundwater. We dig down until we see groundwater seeping in the hole. For this case, there was no groundwater seeping in. And so lack of presence of groundwater, we go to our last indicator, which is that we use the maximum depth of the excavation as the level of groundwater, because there is no evidence that groundwater is ever coming up higher in the past over that depth of excavation. So if we hold that depth of excavation and then we use the offset, which is required by the city of 3 feet, that is the maximum depth that our stormwater system can extend to. And we comply with all of that. In addition, while we are doing the test pit, once the test pits are complete, we give that geotechnical engineer a rough idea of the elevation of where our detention or infiltration basin is going to be. He digs another hole, and then he performs a falling head permeability test in the area and the soil where the water will actually be infiltrating. So we're getting test results of the soil that will actually be used for this design. As I mentioned before, we got a rate of 65 feet per day in this location, which is a fantastic rate. The DEP requires us to use 1/2 of the actual in situ rate to build in conservatives. So we're basically doing we did the design on about 32.5 feet per day. So I just wanted to spend a minute on that because I wanted the board to understand that we just didn't willy-nilly throw this design together. It's based on science, it's based on engineering, and it's based on the regulations that we have to follow. And the city engineer has reviewed it, and she has confirmed with most of that. As far as the water quality goes, there was a commenter that basically was concerned about the contamination to the groundwater. The DEP regulations also have requirements for addressing that. We are in a water supply protection zone here, so we have to increase the standard of which the water quality gets into that infiltration basin. And we are doing that by having catch basins which have hooded outlets. And what that does is it keeps the sediment from going downstream in the pipe, and any floatable product, gas or oil that comes off of vehicles, can't leave the basin and it stays right there. In addition to that, prior to discharge to the infiltration basin, we have a water quality unit. It's an additional unit, and its only function is to take water coming in from the collection system. It basically treats it by creating a swirling effect, pushing all the soils and contaminants into the center of the basin and trapping them. And so clean water then goes out and infiltrates into the basin. So we have our stormwater report provides all of the documentation on how we meet the water quality standards per the DEP. Again, they've been reviewed and we comply with the DEP standards. And I already talked about, no, I didn't. Actually, and this was the last comment. One of the direct abutters to the project is concerned, he has a pool in his backyard, and he was concerned that the vibrations from the compaction equipment might damage the pool. So again, we talked to the geotechnical engineer. He gave us some recommendations, and I'll show you what we did on the plan to address that. So the last comments here basically identify what we've done for revisions to the plans. We've added the mill and overlay limits to Loudville Road. We added an area of no vibratory compaction on the driveway. That same abutter asked us to remove some bushes along his property line. And we also removed the hedgerow along Loudville so that we could increase sight distance. We updated the drainage piping on the cul-de-sac to direct more buildings into the detention basin to address the city engineer's comments. And we updated the pump station detail. So that is the correspondence that we put together. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. If you're not, I'll just want to flip through the plans real quick and show you these items where they are so you have an idea of where they are. I've highlighted them on the plans. And then we can answer any questions that you might have. Right. All right, so this is the updated set of plans. The first sets of updates are here. So this is the limit of the mill and overlay on Loudville. Basically goes from where the curb intersects to where the curb intersects. And this correlates to the curb line on Pineview as well. So where both curbs go through, that's on sheet C301. We added in this note here, which basically identifies a 100-foot arc from the swimming pool. We are going to elaborate a little bit more on this note so that the contractor doesn't miss it. But basically, we're going to give him a station basically from, looks like 250 to the beginning of the roadway. So we'll shade this so that there is no compaction in this area. We're also going to specify a different lifting system in this area. Our standard specifications identify a 12-inch lift for gravel. We're going to ask to use a static roller with a 6-inch lift, a heavier roller, so we get the same compaction just without the vibration. This is the hedgerow that we identified to be removed. We originally had this called out just to be trimmed at the end. This side was always being removed. And then if you look at this hedgerow here, which I believe we saw in the field, this is a set of maybe 20-foot tall hemlock trees, I believe, and that abutter asked us to take them out and stump it. So we are doing that. These rows of evergreen trees along the property lines were already on the plan. So it actually will make a nicer design to have that. I'm going to just go to the drainage plan right here. This is the end of the cul-de-sac. These red lines represent the drainage piping that was added to the drainage system so that the roofs of these buildings can be directed into the catch basins, into the infiltration basin. And by doing that, we are able to take that 0.1 and that 0.01 and that 0.03 cubic feet per second, basically knock it out, and then we basically are less than existing conditions on this. The last item is update of the pump station detail, which is right here. When we submitted, we had used our VHB standard detail, which showed a precast concrete dual pumping system with a precast concrete valve box. What we used at Pineview was a pre-manufactured pumping system. It's round. The pumps are located in the wet well. It comes manufactured and delivered to the site with all the pumps and the controls in it. Very easy to install. It's basically foolproof. You dig a hole, you put it in, you brace it, you connect the inlet and the outlet and power it, and you're done. So those are the updates to the plans that were prepared. And then lastly, in the letter, we had provided draft copies of the master trust, master deed, and the homeowners association agreement. They're in draft form, but as our comment letter basically said, when we submitted for Pineview, this board had some comments on the Pineview documents. So when we created these documents, we basically used Pineview, which incorporates all of your comments. Going through them and looking at them, the concern of the board was identifying that the homeowners association was 100% responsible for all the road and utilities and the maintenance, which are located in there as well. That there was some sort of messaging system to abutters that's in there as well, although and no abutters have stepped up to be the head of a neighborhood group like they did on Pineview. So in looking at what we submitted, we believe we have addressed the comments that we can. Just before the meeting, Dylan forwarded an email to me that I believe he received from one of the abutters an hour ago, basically complaining about the neighborhood meeting. And I just want to, reiterate that in that email, she requested 30 days notice for another abutters meeting. So we've had two, and the abutters meeting is not a public meeting, as she incorrectly referred to it in the email. So if it's a public meeting, the open meeting law requires 2-week notification, not 30 days. We provided a week. We have registered it. In her email, she said she did not receive the notice. We have copies of the certified mailing that a letter was delivered to the post office, and they certified that they received it. Where it goes from the post office is beyond our control. If she didn't get it because the post office failed to deliver it, we've met the burden of proof under the open meeting law that we have actually provided notice to the planning board, and we have attempted to notify them. We've had 2 meetings. They have been very cordial, although poorly attended. We sent out 53 notices. If you make the assumption that each household that it goes to has 2 people in it, you could potentially have 100 people at these meetings. The last one we had 8. The first one we had 1. So from the developer's point of view, we've tried to reach out to the abutters. They, other than a select few, they just don't seem interested in engaging. We think we've met our burden of proof to try and address what we have, and we ask the board to take that in consideration tonight as you're discussing the project.
Thank you. Yep. Real quick, so just for the record here, look at our list of things from last time. So the city engineer has approved the stormwater plan and the bond. The fire department confirmed that the roadway is safe for their apparatus and is sufficient for that. One other thing, what's going on with Concom? Has that been officially finished, or?
Yes, Conservation Commission is officially off the books. We have not changed the limit of disturbance on the project. Their area of jurisdiction ends at the 100-foot buffer. The wetland flags that were set by another consultant have been submitted to Conservation Commission. We have not received notice that they need to be altered. So we are still holding that 100-foot buffer. When I dropped off this response to comments, Ava was there when I went over. Is it Ava? Yeah. She was there when I went over the submittal with Dylan and Allison. And she basically said, well, it looks like you're all set, no Conservation Commission. So
okay.
She said she'll get me next time.
Yes. Great. Any questions or comments from the board? James?
I just want to reiterate, because you sort of indicated it and you just stated it again, just so everyone knows that the city engineer did state in the bond amount of 14,750, close
114.
114, thank you, that she thought that was appropriate, just so everyone knows. And then I had a couple things here that I just want, notes that I took previous, that I just want to mention to the board that should be considerations after. We talked about conditions for maintaining woodland. We talked about conditions maintaining from the last project so that they get inherited. And then we also mentioned that there's an A&R coming our way with 3 parcels in this.
That is correct.
Just want to mention those.
Any other comments or questions, Harry?
Yeah, how long does it take to build this thing?
I'm gonna refer to Craig.
It's pretty much the identical.
Can I have, just so people at home can hear you, just
Yeah, sure.
speaking to the microphone? Thank you.
Hi, Craig Othier, 66 Shadowbrook, South Hadley. I'm one of the developers. This project is pretty much identical to Pineview, same amount of units. I believe we started Pineview construction in probably, I think, May of last year. And we're finishing up our final 2 units now. We expect to be done those 2 units probably within the next 8 weeks.
So it's not, it doesn't take 2 years then, right?
It's right around there.
About 2 years?
Gotta take right around there. And it's still sales based.
I have a question about the neighbor's pool, the in-ground pool.
Mm-hmm.
What could possibly happen to that pool? I mean, is it a cement pool? Is it a?
Yeah, that a butter
Oh,
is,
that's yours.
it's right there, yeah.
Yeah,
it's got a liner in it, but can I have you come up? Sorry. We got people watching from home. I want to make sure they can hear everything.
My problem is I can't get out of the chair.
Oh, boy.
No rush.
Bad hips.
Yeah, I'm Steve Antonitis. I reside at 279 Lowville Road. And my concern is I have an in-ground pool and it has concrete, footing all the way around. It's a sidewalk that goes all the way around. And previously, back quite a few years ago, when they put the water tank up on Drury Lane, they blasted. And no town never notified me they're going to blast. And my concrete, cracked in a few places. That's why I'm concerned this time here, whether compacting the ground shaking is going to crack more. I don't have the money to replace it, all that.
Yeah, it sounds like they're gonna take some steps to make sure that.
Yeah,
that
right.
doesn't
I already
happen.
talked with them about that.
And then they also now have a little bit of notice from you that that's a risk and, you know,
Yeah.
I think they're
Because I was concerned about, going through another big expense in order to replace it or something.
I think they probably would rather take some precautionary measures now than buy you a new pool at the other end if they crack it, so.
Because, you know,
I think
these
they're-
pools have a vinyl liner in them,
Yeah.
you know, which usually lasts about 20 years if you take care of the pool good.
This might be a handful of people that are the only ones that'll be more nervous than you about if something happens to that pool, so.
All right, thank you.
As they said, you know, if something happens, make sure you're reaching out to the applicant, because
Yeah, right.
they'll wanna know.
They're a good bunch of boys, so I think I might have safe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ken, any
Answer my
other-
question.
Okay. All right, any members of the public comments or questions? Anybody in the room?
So, good evening. My name is Chris Stratton, and although I have family in Easthampton, I reside on Redford Drive in Northampton. And I actually now represent the southwest corner of Northampton in our city council, which is to say that I think the northern limit of this project is some 200 to 300 feet from my ward. I wanted to echo, I think, the concerns of some of my constituents that we share with our Easthampton neighbors about adding traffic. And yes, it is a collected traffic volume between the two projects to a shared roadway network. You follow Torrey Street into Northampton, we call it Glendale Road, and it goes up a very challenging, narrow, curvy hill. But on a more personal level, one of the things I notice about this, and I'm not as familiar with your development regulations as I am with ours, is that, we're clustering the people in one part of the site. We're putting the houses in one place and we're reserving a sort of an open space in another. And sometimes when this is done, there is a requirement that there be a way to get into that open space, at least from the housing within the site. I don't know how familiar people are with this area, but this is just absolutely threaded through with neighborhood trails. I mean, kids on their bikes, probably dirt bikes in the past. It's been a very popular emergent recreation area, not formalized. The connection to the Northampton project is obviously remote. It is a land deal for a piece of the 2018 parcel. I would note that last time there were mentions to that parcel having frontage on Torrey, that's no longer true. It is only an interior parcel, but I think that was correctly, tonight. But the consequence of that and the disconnected Northampton project is that immediately north of this site is going to be 170 or so acres of conservation area. Much of it is outside of the gravel area, is beautiful woodland with old woods roads running through it and trails. But the other consequence of the, again, separate Northampton project is that it would tie into the Easthampton sewers. And I believe there was a comment from an Easthampton resident that sort of said, Northampton's going to get trails and Easthampton's going to get Northampton sewage, and sewage is not the word they used. So, if there's a way to build an access path into this, basically to get from, the condo, not subdivision road, to the west or to the north, then, Easthampton residents connect not only to this little 7-acre open space, but to this 170-acre open space in Northampton. And, I know the power of the planning board may be limited by ordinance in terms of what you can do. I'm debating this with our planning director. Though I think we're making progress on that on our side. But, there's also the phenomenon of desire paths. I can guarantee you people will be going into the woods. And if there's a planned area that makes sense, then they go there. If there isn't, then, they're wearing paths in the grass, and that's something that the condo association then has to, wrestle over. So, I would love to see two of the houses scooch just a little further apart and here's the path between them. And that's basically the sum of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Clarifying question.
Yeah.
You said north. A big chunk of the property north is open space that you have, but there's a wetland kind of really close blocking it off, right? Is that the side he's talking about, or is it the side toward the big
Yeah,
pit
so
on the other end?
if you look at this is north here,
Okay, so it's toward the pit.
this direction. So this is the Northampton line. This line right here is the Northampton Easthampton line. So we actually can't connect to this property because a different landowner owns between us and that property. So we would have to seek access rights from that individual to make a connection to Northampton. So It sounds like a great idea. We just don't have the ability to do it.
There is a path on the ground today. So it would just be a question of formalizing it to the property line, and then indeed it's out of your hands.
And there is a question. This is a private development, and there is a concern regarding liability. How do you ask a private entity to provide liability to the general public? Someone gets hurt on the property. So there is no desire from the developer's point of view to make the property open. That piece of property that is shaded in gray is absolutely 100% open to anybody that's a resident in Whispering Pines. They can walk back there all they want.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Anybody online?
Anyone online would like to speak? You see raise hand function. I'll give you the ability to do so. Seeing any?
Okay. Any other comments or questions or thoughts? I mean, I think we definitely need to continue this to at least get a draft decision with conditions and stuff for us to go through at a future meeting, but I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to raise at this point.
I'd like to suggest we stick with the 114,750, given it's approved by the city engineer as a bond as a requirement in the draft.
Yeah, I think we've talked through several conditions that I think Dylan can get into a draft. And review all that at a future meeting and go from there. Dylan?
So just for getting the draft decision together, gonna include what we've talked about here at these last two meetings, decisions, conditions from the previous few developments that you folks have approved. I want to send that out to you folks, and if you folks have comments about that, the way you want to do it is just have people reply to me directly about that. I can edit them and send them out. Is that the way you'd like me to approach that, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally we'll come and talk it through at the next meeting.
Yep.
And if we need to, I think we've done this in the past where we can even make revisions in here if we have to.
Yep, I'll do
I
that
think
the
that's
same
probably
way we
cleaner
did
than
last time.
having
Out of
everybody.
meeting deliberation.
Yeah, so I think that probably makes more sense, and we can also send that to the applicant, the draft decision to the applicant, and post it on the website, and that way people can see that in advance of the next meeting as well.
Wonderful. I'll do that then. And
So that leaves you a lot of homework.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about your timeline than anything else. So I know we have a meeting next week, which I think is probably too soon for you to get that done. So when would work for,
so I would say,
if you look at our brand new schedule the whole year?
so what we have right now, we have somebody on for next week. We've got a special permit and site plan approval application for the American Legion. I'll be sending you folks all the information tomorrow. Then you folks have a joint meeting with the ordinance committee on the 3rd.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I could probably get this together by the 3rd if you'd like to do that after that meeting, but I don't know quite how much time you'd like to do.
That's kind of a bigger meeting too already.
Would be, I think it might be one that's not gonna be just kind of a quick rubber stamp. I mean, you guys might
I'd
have
be
some
more
more
inclined to
discussion
go to
on
the
that
next
one.
meeting. That would be the March 17th meeting.
So, and then I know we've got one other, I haven't scheduled them yet. I shall have to actually get them on the phone and see when and what they're looking to do, but, food truck court over at 114 Northampton, we've received an application for that. I haven't scheduled them yet. I could possibly schedule them to April, because I think they're looking to get going in summer if I was guessing. So we could do the 17th, if that works for everybody.
Asking the applicant, I mean, if this has to go out till the March 17th meeting, obviously you guys want this done as soon as possible. I know that, but how bad is that? Or
1 second. Yeah.
part of this is a scheduling thing. So the truth is that the earlier date would be March 3rd. And it would be after we have a joint ordinance subcommittee meeting about revised revisions. So part of this is that because of the way the schedule's worked out, our meeting next week is our only meeting before March 3rd. So it'll be either March 3rd or March 17th, but March 3rd will be a long night and you'll be second on the agenda. So, full disclosure.
March 3rd if possible, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I guess we can put that second after the ordinance subcommittee meeting.
Sure.
And address that then.
Okay. And,
If the board's okay with that.
I just wish we had a coffee machine.
Yeah.
I'll build the agenda so that way there's no time on anything, just everyone's aware that it's.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay.
Motion to continue the special permit under sections 8.3 and 12.7 of the zoning ordinance and 4283 Loudville Road and half of 279 Loudville Road till March 3rd for the second item on the agenda, which we traditionally say 6:30 for.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have anything else on the agenda. I'm just gonna float this as future business, which is that I would love to find someone else to be our designee for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It is quarterly meetings, fully remote. It's pretty interesting. We'll put on the agenda for the next meeting and we can talk about it then, but I'm just floating it now.
We technically have the review of the calendar on the agenda here, don't we? Or that was earlier.
We did
on.
that, yeah.
We did that. Okay, great. Motion to adjourn.
All right, to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.